Hey guys, it's Greg. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over the ultimate tool that every guitarist needs, the Fryette Power Station. Now I know what you're thinking. The Fryette Power Station? Those are weird words. I don't even know what this is. Oh my god, you're going to tell us? You're going to tell us? Ah! Well, shut up and don't be silly. Of course I'm going to tell you. That's the whole reason we're doing this video. You're welcome. So the Fryette Power Station. Now, a lot of people know what this is, but for some reason, a lot of people still don't. It kind of flies under a lot of people's radars. So I'm going to be doing a really in-depth video of the 10 different things that you can use this for and basically what it does in any kind of scenario. But basically, this is the ultimate kind of live tool, bedroom tool, and recording tool. This kind of is the one device that can do almost everything you would ever need for any kind of recording scenario, live scenario, power amp scenario, using with a modeler. I mean, there's so many different things. So we're going to be going over 10 uses for it, and then at the end, I'll be showing you how this works as a tube power amp and putting my tube preamp pedal by Dover into it and letting you hear how it basically, create a full amp for you if you had like a preamp pedal type setup. Okay, so the power station, what is it? Why do we care? Well, shut up. I'm going to tell you. Now, it's important to know before we kind of get into the specifics. There are two versions of this. This is the PS-2A. This is the 50-watt 6L6 tube power amp version. There is also the PS-100, which is $100 more. This is $900. The 100 is $1,000. Basically, that is 100 watts, still 6L6, but that one has two channels instead of one. So really all you're adding is a second channel and more headroom and power if you need it. Now getting back to what is both power stations. What is a power station? Basically a power station is a lot of things. It is a 6L6 tube power amp, but it's also arguably one of the best, if not the best, attenuator on the market. Now this has a lot of uses. I'm going to go over 10 different ones, and there's also a ton of demos as this as an attenuator. And so if you want to hear it as an attenuator, it's great. It doesn't really change any detectable tone or feel that I can hear at all. If anything, it almost makes your tone better. But this demo is going to focus on all the different uses for it, and at the end, I'll be showing it as a power amp and using a tube preamp pedal so you can kind of hear how you would use it as a recording or live or at home kind of rig. Use number one, reason number one, this is awesome. This would be great for anybody that just needs a power amp. Maybe you have synergy modules, you have a bunch of preamp pedals like I do, you have two preamp pedals, you need something that's just super clean that's going to power it. This is great for that. Number two, it can add presence or resonance, or I guess they have it as labeled as presence and depth, same thing, to anything that you're running into it. So if you have, again, you have a preamp pedal, you have a synergy unit, whatever the use is, you could get additional EQ with this as well as volume, which is really, really cool. So use number three. Now it can attenuate like we've talked about before, but what's really unique to this unit, and I think all attenuators in general, is it can actually make amps louder. So let's say you have a 1-watt amp that you really love, and you're like, I'm never going to be able to gig this thing live. You can use this to add volume to it. So if you're at noon or higher, you're actually adding, additional volume, additional headroom. But if you have a super loud, crazy amp or something, or you live like in a condo like I do and you need to be quiet, this is also great as an attenuator. Or you could use it to attenuate one, boost volume on another, however you want to do it. Number four, probably one of the most useful features. Around the back, it has its own separate effects loop. Now, this is super useful. Let's say you have an amp like a Plexi. Now, that Plexi has an effects loop, but if you crank that amp, it's useless because now, it sounds like a farty blown out amp. So what the nice thing is, also, a Plexi needs to be totally cranked, to the loudest volumes ever made to actually get a good tone out of it. So you could use this to attenuate it and then use the own effects loop that it has built in and still be able to use your time-based effects. So it solves a ton of issues, whether you're playing live or at your house or recording or whatever it is. It can make any amp that's not usable normally totally usable. Number five, it can be used with any sort of modeler and actually give it real tube tone. It has this really cool EQ setting on the front where it says flat with these two dip switches, and then we have warm and bright and deep and edge. Now we'll get more to that in a minute, but let's say you want to use your modeler. You don't want this to add any additional EQ or tone or anything. You can just set the front of this to flat, which would be just flat response, kind of like a FR speaker or whatever. And then your actual, you're just using this as a tube power amp to get that punch and feel, but you're getting all your tone and everything from your presets on your modeler or however you want to set it up. Okay, number 6, it also has its own reactive load. So why is that important? Well, if you're doing any sort of recording, home recording, anything like that, you can actually take the line out signal on the back here and it can go to any DAW of your choice. Now, it does not have its own built-in one, and a lot of people, well, it probably costs double or triple if it did. But the good thing is, since you just have that clean line out signal, you can go to any DAW you want that you already have. Odds are you probably already have one anyways, but there's not a lot of attenuators that actually have this feature, or power amps in general. Number 7, this one's really cool. So around the back, we have an ohm matcher. So this is really important. A lot of us will have, like a 4 ohm cab, but maybe your head is only 8 or 16 and it doesn't match, or vice versa. There's always like, oh, I can't buy this speaker, or I can't buy this because it doesn't match the ohms, blah, 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 blah. Well, around the back of this thing, we actually have an ohm matcher for the input as well as the output. So you can change the input to like 4, the output to 16, input 8, output 16, whatever it is. You can match any head to any cab, or any power amp to any preamp, whatever it is. So now you can use any piece of gear that you want simply by switching a couple of little easy switches on the back here. Okay, number 8, we're going to go back to what I kind of referenced before. Now, it's really, really awesome when you're doing preamp pedals into this and you want additional kind of flexibility with EQ to use these front panels here and get, warmer or brighter tone. Basically, as you flip these switches up, down here you're adding more low end, and up here you're adding more bite and high end. So using these with any sort of tube preamp or any sort of preamp pedal really lets you kind of shape your tone even more, and really just gives you a better tone than you've ever had. Using this with my preamp pedals sounds a lot better than just running them into the effects returns of just my standard heads that I usually use. I have a lot more flexibility between the presence and depths at all these different EQ switches. So really, really cool feature. Number 9. So it also has an additional thing here on the front where it says high and low. Now this is an input level that controls anything you put into it. So if I put a preamp into this and it's just insanely loud, which some preamp pedals are insanely loud, and it's just too loud, I can do this and get a volume reduction or a power reduction of about 50%. So that's a really cool option. Again, same thing, Synergy modules can be extremely loud. So if you put this through it and it's just like, oh my God, this is still ripping my head off, you can use that button up front and cut the power and reduce the volume by an additional kind of like 50%. And finally, number 10. Now this would be a great solution for somebody that doesn't want to lug a giant heavy head around and just wants a tube, power amp for live use. So this would be great, bring this with a head and a cab or whatever you want to do, and just a few pedals or a preamp pedal, and now you have a full head and cab just using this. I mean, this thing weighs, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 pounds instead of lugging my giant heads around. Way, way easier solution for anybody who's doing a lot of gigs and just wants to have like a pedal board type rig or anything like that, which is just a power amp. Anything that's using a real cab, especially, this would be kind of the ultimate solution for that. Okay, so those are all the different uses. Now we're going to hear it paired with my Dover GVP Tube 2-channel high gain preamp. So this is voiced kind of in the Marshall vein, so it's got that kind of EL34 British kind of bite to it. So again though, this is a tube power amp of 6L6. So I'm going to be using, that one has built-in 12AX7 preamp tubes. This has a 6L6. So combining these essentially is going to make, a 6L6 style Marshall amp. So it should be really cool. So we're going to go through just some basic rhythm and lead tones so you guys can kind of hear how it would sound in that setup. Okay, and the signal chain for this, I'm going to be using my Charvel DK24 tuned to standard tuning. We're going straight into the Dover preamp and out into the power station, and that's going into my Ingle 212 with vintage 30s. I'm miking this up with an SM57. Alright guys, so that'll do it for this video. Now what do you think? Is this the most insanely awesome, useful piece of gear of all time? Or am I full of malarkey again? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, destroy the like button for the mighty YouTube algorithm. And leave a comment even if you didn't like it, or if you did, or whatever. Just leave some sort of nonsense comment to appease the mighty YouTube algorithm. And I will summon you for the next video. Okay, number 9. What? Wrong number. Okay, number 9.